Welcome to the Forager Podcast, where I talk with cottage food entrepreneurs about their strategies for running a food business from home. I'm David Crable, and today I am talking with Porsha Kimble. But before we begin, I wanted to thank the sponsor of this episode, Cottage CMS. Cottage CMS is a newer platform for cottage food entrepreneurs that is growing rapidly. It now hosts well over 1,000 cottage food business websites, and for good reason. I have checked it out myself, and it is very impressive. If you find yourself juggling a lot of different tech tools, Cottage CMS can definitely help. I'll talk more about them later in this episode, so stay tuned for that and a special offer for Forager Podcast listeners. All right, so I have Porsha on the show today. She lives in Dallas, Texas, and currently sells flavorings for baked goods with her food business, PK Elixirs. Over the past 5 years, it's become a super successful business and has already generated well over six figures in sales this year alone. But that's only what Portia's been doing recently. She started selling cakes from home almost 20 years ago and built it up into an extremely successful cottage food business. As she grew a large social media following, she started teaching cake decorating classes around the nation and competed on Cake Wars on the Food Network in 2017. Portia eventually started teaching cake decorating around the globe, and more recently has been helping entrepreneurs online through her two communities, Beyond the Frosting and The Baker's Table. I loved this conversation with Portia because she's a totally open book. And in this episode, we talk not only about her many successes, but also some of the struggles she's faced along the way to attain them. And with that, let's jump right into this episode. Welcome to the show, Portia. Nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Portia, you've been doing this for a long time now. Can you take me way back to the beginning? How did the whole cake thing get started for you?
Well, I will say I grew up in a household that my grandma cooked everything. She baked, she cooked. She was a cafeteria lady at the school that we all went to school at, her kids and grandkids. And then, of course, she was an elder in the church that always, cooked or baked when someone passed away. So, food and dessert and baking has really been a very I would say a big hand in raising me and where I'm from. And so I would say it started there without really knowing that it did. And then as time went on and I moved to Dallas and went to college, I started to cook more and bake more. And then when I got out of college, I was like, what am I going to do with my time? Because I was so used to working full time and going to school full time, I was bored. And I saw at a local Michael's, they had a Wilton cake decorating class that they offered where you buy the kit for $25 and the class was free. And I took all four classes. That's when, fondant just came out. That's what you call fondant, whatever. And, Cake Boss was in. And I had just finished taking those wilting classes, but I hadn't sold a cake yet. And it was one of the guys' birthdays at work. And one of the ladies said, well, you're taking cake decorating classes. Will you make the cake? And that was the first time I was going to make a cake. And they said, well, it can look like whatever you want. And with Wilton, you don't get that option in the course. You mimic what's in the book. So I thought, I don't know how to decorate a men's cake, so I just kind of did something and I took it to work. I didn't charge. I just took it to work. And then from there, people at work were asking me to make cakes. I probably charged like $25 at the time. It wasn't until I got let go from that job is when I started selling cakes.
All right. Yeah, because I have in my notes here, you said a cake pulled you out of debt.
It did. So I, at the time, got let go from my job. And my boss, his name is Paul Hayes. At the time, we just had Facebook. And I got let go. And he asked me if we could have lunch about 2 weeks later after I got fired. And so we did. And he said, Facebook is the new wave. That's what he said. He was like, Facebook is the new TV. People are going to be looking at their phones and looking at it You need to get on it. You need to come up with a business name. You need to come up with pricing. He told me to get a logo. He said, you need, this is your this is your business venture. This is your calling. That's what he told me. But it was the fact that he took the time to have lunch with me to tell me that. That is a very pivotal part, I believe, in my journey. Because I would have never done it if we wouldn't have had that lunch.
Interesting. And so, like, most businesses start pretty slow. What was your business like? Like, once you actually created the Facebook account or started posting things, like, what do you remember from those early years? Did you get orders easily or?
I got orders like very frequently. That's a really good question. Nobody's ever asked me that. It did happen quick because I was posting my stuff on Facebook, right? I had to come up with the name, so I came up with Your Cake Diva, and I did an event. They were like, "Well, we need your logo," and I didn't have one, so my logo, it's up here. It's on a card. It was a high heel shoe, and the heel was a tiered cake, and I had some business cards made. And I think just from posting, people started ordering. And where I live, nobody was kind of doing the things that were different. And I was doing something. I started out doing sculpted cakes, and that's kind of what did it for me. And nobody was doing that. Nobody was doing the number cakes at the time. I was freehanding those. We didn't have a pan like we do now. And that's kind of what happened. It just literally took off because of Facebook and word of mouth.
Yeah, I mean, back then, you didn't have to pay as much for Facebook. I mean, they would just kind of promote
It was free.
things,
It
right?
was free.
Yeah.
You just had to pay. You just had another page. It was just a business page. That was it.
Yeah. But back in the early days, right? You just showing up on Facebook, they'd promote you, right?
Well, you didn't really have that option. It was the more you posted, the more you promoted. We didn't have all the analytics and the algorithm. That was not even a talk at the time. When you posted, it just showed up. It wasn't delayed like it is now. It was real time.
So do you feel like part of your success was because you're kind of on the cutting edge, right? You're using Facebook, you were trying new techniques, doing different things. Like,
Yes.
I mean, it sounds like you're trying to be very different and distinct.
I wasn't trying to be. I think I just was.
Hmm. No, I mean, your business has gone crazy, right? You've shifted, you've pivoted over the years. You've been on the Food Network, you've spoken internationally. You now have a six-figure business selling flavorings. But before we really get into your journey, I saw something in my research that I wanted to dig into and ask you about, just because I don't know, maybe it has something to do with kind of how you've grown. But you mentioned that you were the only person in your school that was a minority. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And so have you reflected on that? Like, how do you feel like that was at the time for you? And do you feel like that's affected your life in any way?
I want to tell you such a great question. What's interesting about that is my mom is Hispanic, my dad is black, my stepdad is white. I went to an all Caucasian school from a little bitty town in West Texas called Forsan, Forsan. It's a 2A school. I think I had 41 people in my class. That was like the largest class at the time. And there was no black people. I was the only one. Now, there are neighboring oil field towns that are 2A schools. They didn't have any black people either. There were some Hispanics, but it was kind of just like a handful. There wasn't very many at my school or even at the other schools that we would compete against. So it was just me. I can honestly say nobody ever made me feel different because of my skin color. Only one person. I never heard the N word until one person said it, and I didn't even know what that meant when he called me that. But I think it's interesting to not have a history with African Americans as someone who's biracial, and my audience is African American. I think that's very strange. I think when I started out, I didn't see any black people like that, like going to the cake shows when they were available or like the days of sharing. You didn't see any black people. You didn't see any Asians. You really maybe saw a couple Hispanic people, and that was it. And I think that's when I knew that nobody, I was like, there's got to be other Black people making cakes, but they're not coming to anything. I wasn't seeing them. And so that's how I ended up having the brown sugar cake or treat. But yeah, I do find it strange that I do not have a connection growing up being African American, more Hispanic and Caucasian than anything, to now really be the only African American woman who has a national flavoring line and done all the things that I've done.
Yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating that you like now have done things specifically for minorities. And I don't know if this is still the case, but I saw that, you had a larger following in Nigeria than you did even locally, right?
This is correct. Yes.
What has that been like for you?
I think it was when I went to Nigeria, it was an experience of a lifetime. You know, I mean, over there, cake people are like NFL players or celebrities over there. You know, I never experienced people wanting to take a picture with me as much as they did want to be around me. There's no concept of personal space there. But to go to Nigeria and be asked to come and be the only person that had been really asked as an African American from here to go over there was really just it was an honor.
Yeah, we're going to get a little bit more into how your cake business grew over time, but you mentioned the brown sugar retreat, and I just wanted to ask about that. What is that? And, when did you start it?
I started it in 2017, 2016, 2017. Um, because I had been going to these days of sharing. Here in Texas, we have these, they used to be called days of sharing. They would have cake clubs and they would meet every month and they would have a day of sharing where they would bring people in that would demo various things. You ate lunch, it was like $60. And then they had like raffles and stuff. It was really just a place to network and meet other bakers from the surrounding areas. And so I remember going, and me and another lady were the only Black people there, and they just didn't treat us very nice. The lady that went with me had won a raffle prize, and they asked her if they could see her ID. And she was like, I have my raffle ticket. And they're like, we need to see an ID. And I'm like, there's like 40 people in here. They didn't ask any of the other people. They just asked her. And I was like, there's got to be a reason why other people are not coming to these events, or maybe they don't know about them, or maybe they don't feel comfortable. So that's when I decided I was going to have the brown sugar cake retreat. And some people said, well, people are going to think it's just for Black people. And I was like, it's a baking ingredient, it's brown sugar. And I never looked at SoFlo or That Takes the Cake as it's just a white cake show. Nobody said that about them. So why would you say that about mine? Now, not saying it was for just Black people, but it was a place for African Americans or from for minorities to go if they felt uncomfortable going to the other events.
Is that how it eventually turned out, like in terms of the number of attendees?
Yeah, it was, honey, it was Black folks. We had some white people come. I call them sugar cookies. You know, we have a sprinkle of sugar cookies come. But the one thing I think that people were missing is, why would you let that? We don't let it deter us to go anywhere. So why would you let be like, well, it's really just for Black people? No, it's for people who want to learn. We ate real good. You got a great swag bag. It was detailed. We have music. Maybe it's a cookout, okay? But you learning at the same time. And some people said, I'm going, and they had a great time, and they would come every year, Black, white, Hispanic, whatever the case may be. But I just thought it was interesting. I think people don't look at it as, if I see somebody do it that looks like me, I can do it too. And we didn't have anybody at the time. So I did.
So you've been doing this 9, 10 years or so, and this is your last year. Is that right?
I ended it a couple of years ago. I kind of had another one. It's not like it used to be. It's just kind of small. The one I have coming up is kind of the mix. The brown sugar retreat is just part of the hands-on part. Mix would be on the frosting, but it used to be like 400 people, and I would have it in a different state every year, and it would be like 3 days. So it was like learning, hands-on, business conversations. It was a whole weekend event.
So obviously, cake has profoundly changed your life. Let's walk through like how that all happened. Like, wait, going back, what, maybe almost 20 years ago when you first started to learn about this. And like you said, you were getting orders pretty regularly. I mean, this is even predating Texas having a cottage food law. Maybe you didn't even know about the laws at the time.
I did not. I know that the law kicked in 2012. I do remember that. Because when we would go to these events, people would be like, well, you know, the health department came and she could finish her cakes for the weekend and she couldn't bake anymore. You know, there were these stories that people would call on other people if they didn't like their cake, or other bakers were calling on, they were getting reported. It was kind of like, you know, doing hair in your home back then. You weren't supposed to do that. And I didn't know anything about it till I started hearing the stories. And then I had some glitter. I thought all the glitter was edible. I was moving and I said, I'm gonna make some cake pops. And I put the glitter that I had got from the cake supply store on the cake pop and I took a picture of it. I didn't sell it. I took a picture of it. And somebody reported me to the health department. So I took my glitter that I bought and I took it to the health department and I said, I want you to tell me what's wrong with it. And they said, well, one, it's not edible. So then I thought, why would the cake supply store sell something that's not edible? And that's kind of how my crosshairs got involved with the cottage law.
Did you actually start using it? Did you feel like anything changed in your business at that time?
I think a lot of people didn't know about the cottage law. And so once I found that out, we had Periscope back then. We didn't have live. So I had went on Periscope and I was like, this is what happened to me. And then I was like, you know, there's cottage laws. Of course, some of the states didn't even have a law, but we did. And so I think that brought awareness to a lot of people, like what we can and cannot do. And that's where a mix with that and getting sued for a wedding cake created my baking and business course, where I would talk about the cottage law.
Right, you got sued for a wedding cake. Never heard of this happening before. You need to tell me more about that.
We had a really hot summer here in Texas, per usual. And basically, I screwed the money off. I screwed the deposit money off, is what happened. And they wanted an all black cake. We had sat down, done a tasting, but they made all these changes. They found a picture on Pinterest at the time. You know, I was not as experienced in what they wanted to do. And I should have said no, but I needed the money. So I said yes. So they made all these changes. I had updated my contract before I had met them. Just because I had had another customer say some things, and I was like, let me add this in my contract. So I did. And they made changes. I felt like I executed what they changed. There were some things that I should have done that I didn't. So that is my fault. And when I got there, the event planner, I think, was shocked that it was a black cake. And she didn't like that. And so when I left, when I was leaving, she stuck her hand in the elevator door and she's like, you're going to be hearing from the couple. And I did. They didn't like it. They hadn't even seen it. She had just told them that she didn't like it. So I think it just caused panic with them. But when I looked at the pictures of the cake, because my good friend was the photographer of the wedding, they had dismantled the cake and redecorated it themselves. However, I had the pictures from the wedding from before and after. They just pretty much said they didn't like the cake. They ate the cake, but they didn't like it. And so they took me to court and I got sued for a wedding cake. I won because they got what they paid for, which was a tiered square black cake. That's what my contract said. And that's what they got. So,
What was that process like?
I mean, they had someone serve me. I literally was at lunch at work. It was my birthday and they had me served. And you basically go, you stand right by them. It's not like court TV where someone's on one side, you're standing right next to them. They do send you the court does send you paperwork if you want to basically give evidence prior to the case for the judge to look at. So it's like small claims court. So I did submit the pictures. I did submit my contract that they signed. I highlighted where I had an example that said, if you give me a picture that you have found and you make changes, it will not look like the photo that you presented due to the changes that you made. So I highlighted that, sent the inspiration photos, sent the pictures of what they did before, what it looked like before when I left, and what they did after. I don't think they were expecting that. So I did get that option to do that. Um, Other than that, that was it. And then we went to court several months later.
Because this is like something that so many bakers are afraid of, right? Afraid of getting sued, right? They need liability insurance, they need an LLC and all that stuff. So, did you feel like protected that time? Like, did you have any of those things?
I didn't have anything. I had my business name registered, Your Cake Diva, and that was it. I mean, that literally was it. I didn't know anything about an LLC. I was just doing this on the side of working. That was pretty much it. I mean, I didn't know anything else. Nobody had ever said, "Oh, you need an LLC. Oh, you need to protect yourself." They just took me, Porsha Kimble to small claims court, and that was it.
Did you feel nervous at the time? Like,
Oh my God, I was like freaking out when they served me. And so it took months to go to court, like months. And I was working at a different job, and the lawyer at my job said, "We'll offer them a refund." And I was like, "No, because then that would say, to me, that was admitting that I had done something wrong." And he said, "No, throwing money at the problem can save you time." So the cake was $550. That was with delivery. Okay. I offered them up to about $500, was $50 delivery, and they would not take it. They did not want 500. And the judge did ask them, "Why didn't you just take the money?" They said she ruined the best day of our lives. And I was like, "No, you got married in Mexico the weekend before. That was the best day of your life." This was the reception, but it still was wrong. I mean, there were some things they wanted on there that I didn't do. The black wasn't smooth like they wanted. They wanted fondant. I used buttercream because I didn't have any money to buy black fondant. And there was like no black fondant in the city that for that week. It was so hot here. People were not ordering because it was like literally melting. So it was my fault too.
hey, real quick, earlier I mentioned our sponsor of the episode, Cottage CMS. And I'll be honest with you, when I first came across this platform, I was pretty skeptical. I have seen dozens of software platforms built for cottage food entrepreneurs over the years, but this one feels different. For one, Drew and his wife Kat are actually successful cottage food business owners. And also, Drew has a ton of experience building software tools like this. I personally set up a site on Cottage CMS for my fudge business in under an hour, and I was impressed. And clearly, I'm not the only one. As I said at the beginning, even though Cottage CMS has only been around for a few months, it already powers well over 1,000 websites. So I encourage you to check them out. And also, as I said at the beginning, we do have a special offer for listeners. You can check that out by going to cottagecms.com/forager. And when you go to sign up, you can set up a totally free website that is forever free. But if you do want to try the premium features, you can try that totally risk free. Drew offers a 30-day money back guarantee. And also, if you face any hiccups, he provides incredible support, as anyone who uses Cottage CMS can attest to. So, again, I encourage you to check them out. You can do so by going to cottagecms.com/forager. Now back to the show. So, during this time as you were growing your business, did you still have a job, day job this whole time?
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
And how did it grow? Like, I mean, did you feel like at some point you wanted to take it full time and stop doing a day job?
I never thought that. It never crossed my mind to not work and just do cakes. Of course, people would say, "Oh, you should open a bakery." I've never wanted to open a bakery. That has never come out of my mouth. Um, I don't know. It was always just a side thing. Even though I was making more money on cakes than I was at my job, it's still I think the issue was I didn't look at it as a job, like a career. I thought it's always just something extra to do. I never looked at it as this could be a full-time thing. Even though the money showed it, I didn't look at it that way.
I mean, was your business growing over, like, say,
Oh yeah.
from 2011 through
Oh, I was making. a lot of money. I mean, at that point, I had really just started doing wedding cakes and doing like party cakes, like big events. I wasn't doing little cakes anymore. In fact, I had made an announcement. I was like, if your cake isn't going to feed 50 or more people, I can't do it.
So how are you keeping this all afloat? Because it sounds like the cake thing was kind of taking over your life, but you were also holding a day job at the same time.
I've heard people say, ask that. And I'm like, that's just what you did. Um, it was just you go home, you change your clothes, and you just do your cakes, and you work on them at night, and then you get back up and you go to work and you just do it all over again. There wasn't a it was never a question for me. I think that has a lot to do with how you're raised too. Like I was making money. I was having a great time. And I don't have any kids. I didn't have anything stopping me. So yeah, I just did it.
Well, I mean, something's got to give, right? I mean, did you give up sleep? Like, did you get very little
Of
sleep?
course.
Yeah.
I mean, I lost a lot of friends. I didn't get to go to any family events. I never got to go home for anything. I never got to do anything fun, but that's the part in the business that people pray for. You can't have everything at one time. So something has to give. Your personal life, your social skills. Sometimes you just take off work to fulfill the orders that you needed to get done. I mean, absolutely. There was a big chunk I feel of my life that I don't really didn't really enjoy because I was working so much in my business. But I can look back at those cakes that I made at that time and I can tell you exactly what I was going through.
Why do you say that?
Those cakes were reflective of what my life was at that time, you know? So I feel like I was super creative when I was happy. When I would maybe be dating someone, I feel like my style would be a little bit different. Maybe I was better like in a mental headspace where I was happy. I would notice that my cakes were a little bit more creative if people let me have creative freedom versus like, here's a picture, work off of this. And I could see it evolve. I think when I look at the trend over time, like from kind of what people wanted to me getting to do what I wanted to do.
When you look back at that time, do you have any regrets? Like, do you wish you had done things differently?
Of course. I mean, there was my grandparents have been married this year, is it 72 years? I missed their 65th wedding anniversary. I didn't get to go on a vacation with my parents. Like, there's a lot of things that I missed. And do I regret picking cake money over those moments? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because really, what would one or two cakes, me not doing one or two cakes really do for my business? It wasn't gonna do nothing.
Do you feel like you're making different decisions today because of that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, hands down. And I'm older. I'm not working as hard as I did. So I'd rather go do this than go work
You
any day
still,
of the
let's just be
week.
clear, you still do a lot of stuff with your business.
I don't think that I do. People keep saying that, and I don't think I'm as busy because I'm not on a plane like I used to be. So to me, no.
All right. Well, speaking of being on a plane, that gets us into kind of where things went. The selling cakes led you to do teaching decorating, right? So what was that? Because that's a big part of your story.
When I worked for Mike, who owned the IT company, we had all these warehouses all across the United States. They said somebody needs to go look at these. I don't know anything about IT, but I raised my hand. I said, I'll go. And I took a niece, the guy that does do the computer supplies, the IT supplies, with me. And that's when I thought, that's how it started. I thought, if I can go to these cities off the company that I work for, then I don't have to pay for the plane ticket. So we would go on Wednesday, we would work the job Thursday and Friday. Friday night, I would take a niece when we were finished and drop him off at the airport, turn the rental car in, get a new rental car for me, not on work, and then teach the class on Saturday and fly back on Sunday.
So what year was this when you were starting to become like nationally or even eventually internationally known?
2016 is when we did Cake Wars in 2016. It didn't no, we did Cake Wars in 2016. It didn't air till 2017. So really, 2017 is really when I started to travel. A little bit before 2016, I kind of, went to Atlanta and just dabbled a little bit, but then I knew the show was going to come out in January. So I had kind of pretty much had planned a whole cake tour before the show aired. I knew it was coming out in 2017. So it kind of hit early January and then my tour was already out there. So of course the ticket sales just boosted after that.
So at this point, you already had a pretty significant following. You mentioned you've been doing Periscope, you've been doing Facebook.
Yeah.
About how big was your following at that time?
I mean, I think I have like 20,000 people. That seemed like a lot to me. It doesn't seem like a lot to people now, but I've always had a really good following locally, well, for cakes, but it wasn't for teaching. The teaching part was more everywhere else but Dallas, because of social media. But I probably had about, I think, 20,000 followers at the time on Instagram. Facebook has never been as popular, which is weird because that's where I started. But yeah, I've always worked both Facebook and Instagram.
Well, Instagram's a little bit more national, right? So,
Now, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So you mentioned the Food Network. Tell me about that experience.
I didn't have the best experience with the Food Network. I thought it was interesting how they did it, like with the theme and telling people at different times what the theme was. Of course, when I look back, I get it. Like, they don't want everybody to have the same cake, right? You get different, you know, requirements for your cake or whatever. I'm glad I did it. It was really hard work. We standing on your feet for 12 to 14 hours. I thought it was weird how they did the taping the day of, like making us take pictures that they never used and just standing there for hours doing nothing. I thought that was useless. They didn't really feed us. It was so weird. I was so ready. I was so glad when it was over with, but I was so glad that I did it.
Why do you say that? You say it's a bad experience, but I'm glad I did it.
It wasn't yeah, I mean, you can have a bad relationship and still be glad you went through the relationship so you learn, the red flags. But I would say I didn't know what to expect. The experience as far as how they treated us was not good. That's probably what it was. Um, But to be watching the Food Network, Carrie Vincent, Bronwyn Weber, all those years, Buddy Valastro, to see those people on there. And then I did not try out. I was asked. I was asked 3 times to come on the show, and I had turned it down until the third time. They were like, we're not going to ask you again. So then I went.
So you didn't even want to be on the show in the first place.
No, they had asked me to do Cupcake Wars. I turned that down multiple times. They asked me to come on Cake Wars 2 times, and I was like, no. And then that third time, they were like, this is the last time we ask you. So I said, okay, I'll go.
So what changed about just fear of missing out or something?
The day that they called me, I had moved into a new apartment. So I was like, new energy, new me. That's kind of how I felt. I was able to afford a 2 bedroom, 2 bath townhome because I was doing well in cakes. I was like, my job can pay for this, but the extra money I need to pay for this apartment, I can do with my cake business. So because of that and really feeling positive, I'll never forget that day. I was in the kitchen, they called me and everything had just got moved in and they were like, this is it. And I was like, you know what? New place, new me. I'm gonna go for it. So I did.
Why were you hesitant to do it in the first place?
I mean, it's national television and I'm very competitive. I thought, well, what if I get eliminated the first round? Like, no, nobody remembers that person. Like, what? I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to do bad, I think is what it was. I didn't want to do bad. I didn't want to get kicked off the first round. That was like a nightmare to me. But I also knew that my case skills were up to par and that I would be okay. It's just not knowing. That's the hard part.
Well, I know you got second place, which is obviously very good. Was there any disappointment in not getting that first place win?
No, I was so tired. The other cake, Monica and Louise cake was phenomenal. Like they were already at another level in their caking. You know what I'm saying? Like what they brought to the show and what they brought to their piece. I mean, they deserve to get first, hands down. I was very happy with getting second. I think the thing from where I'm from, we don't see anybody that we know on television. So to me, it was like I'm repping a really small town. And I thought there's other Black people, Black women who don't see a lot of African American women on the Food Network competing. So that was another thing for me. So that's why I said I was glad I did it. Absolutely. I don't regret anything about going.
So you said you lined up like a whole class teaching, decorating tour. Did the Food Network help push that forward to help grow it, or do you feel like the Food Network changed anything about your business?
My business, no. I was already doing well with cake. So like it didn't boost anything for me as far as like locally, like, oh, you're on the Food Network. I have to get my cake from you. No. Um, I think for social media it did. Like, absolutely. I think it helped the classes that year when I did the baking and business class and talked about being sued and gave people my contract. That mixed with the TV, hands down, was what did it for me.
So as we move forward and you started to go around the country or and even around the world teaching, right? Um, did you slow down the cakes that you were making? Like, take me over through the next few years. I think you said it was 2016. You did the Food Network, then 2017 it aired. What were the next few years like leading up to the pandemic?
So I stopped making cakes after 2019, after 2018, like after just I maybe did a few cakes, I stopped doing them because I was making more money teaching than I was making cakes. What's weird is I didn't get rid of a lot of my cake supplies, but I stopped making cakes. I was like, if it's not a wedding cake, I can't do it. It's kind of where that happened. So of course you lose a lot of people, right? You lose a lot of clientele because everybody you know is not getting married every year. So that's kind of what happened in 2018. I really just stopped. And then when the pandemic hit, I picked it back up because all the bakeries were closed.
Yeah, I saw that you've picked up doing cakes from home again, right? You were using the cottage food law again fairly recently, but then I think you stopped it again. Is that right?
Yes. So I only did cakes during COVID because it was COVID. That was the only reason. I had stopped making them. I wasn't doing them, but COVID got me back busy again in a way that it was different. The cake world was different when COVID hit. So my design aesthetic was different.
I mean, your business has changed so much over time, and like it's good, it's grown, but also at the same time, like you know, you clearly love to bake, you love to cook, you love to make cakes. Did you feel like you lost anything when you stopped doing those orders?
Yes. I mean, I feel like a big part of me died because I had been so driven and done that for so long. But at the same time, I replaced it with traveling. So it was kind of like I let go of this, but then I grabbed a hold of this, right? And then when I stopped making the cakes, I had classes and I had the retreat. Like it had just started. So it was just really replacing something when I look back at it. But I think the thing is, I love to bake. I love to decorate. And that never has to go away. I mean, I think you can brag. If you haven't made a cake in 5 years and you needed to make one, the fact that you could make one is a flex to me. If I need some money, I know I can put out there I'm taking cake orders.
Well, it's interesting though, because you also recently stopped doing teaching, right?
Yes.
Okay, which leads us into this whole product business, right? Take me through how that started. When did that start and what is it?
COVID is what did it. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine and I said, listen, I can't travel. Most of my revenue, the money I was making was coming from teaching. So I was like, I don't, but because I had stopped cakes and started making them during COVID, I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm getting older. Like, I don't want to work this hard. I call it not being in cake shape, by the way. When you haven't done cakes in a while and then you got to make some, you know you're out of cake shape, right? I hadn't been rolling fondant like that in a couple years. I was like, I am out of cake shape. And he said, well, what if you do flavors because you always say 1 teaspoon per batch? And I thought, you know what? Maybe you're right. And that's kind of when the light bulb went off. I never planned for it to get where it was. I was just going to come out with them first 3 flavors, and that was going to be it.
So I had thought I saw that there was like an actual like scientist that pitched this idea to somebody else and they didn't want it.
Yes. So at the time, a friend of mine had products himself. And the lady who's Young Crumbs, Amanda from Young Crumbs, she's the creator of PK Elixirs at the time. Um, he had passed on flavors. They had brought it to him. He had a product out. He didn't want to do it. So he said, well, why don't you do it? So I was like, okay. So he put me in touch with Amanda, who's the creator of Yum Crumbs. And that's where PK Elixir started. She would formulate it and then send me all the different samples. And then I would say, don't like this, don't like this needs more of this. So it took several months just to, because she would send me sample after sample after sample.
What was that investment like?
At the time, we didn't talk about the money. Like, I never gave any money. Like, here's for testing. I think we just trusted each other. It was like they were formulating stuff to flavor their crumbs, right? So she already had the liquid base. And then she would send me the samples. And then once we got the flavors, we never talked about a price. I don't even know. When I look back, there was no conversation about what it was going to cost to produce. And when we finally got all 3 done, and I got that invoice, that email with that invoice, I about went to the bathroom in my pants. When I tell you, I was like, what is this? It was almost 20,000. It was about $20,000. And I was like, I don't have $20,000, but I had just left my job. I literally just left my job. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I didn't have anything. So I cashed out my 401k from that IT company that I worked at. It wasn't a lot. I had a lot of money on my credit cards for other things. So just the liquid itself was about 20K. If she would have told me the price up front, this PK Elixirs wouldn't exist. I can confidently say it would have never happened. And so that was just liquid. That wasn't caps, labels, bottles, advertisement, the box, like that was nothing. It was just liquid base. I had $5,000 in my 401k. So I sent her five. And so she said, well, we can do a pre-sale. So we'll pre-sale it and you make the money and then you pay us before we do it. And that's exactly what we did. So we did a 2-week pre-sale. I made the first 2 days, I ended up making a little over $22,000. So as soon as I got that money, I sent it to her. Then what was left was mine. And I did, that was the most money I had ever made at that time.
I know another entrepreneur that pulled from their 401k to fund a product business and they got the surprise penalty check at tax time, right? You knew that was coming, right?
I knew, but I didn't care. I was already too far gone. Like, and I don't know, I'm very cautious about the things I put out, but I just didn't care. I was on a wing and a prayer at that point. I had already yelled it out at the rooftops on social media, so I couldn't go back now. But I mean, when I look back, $5,000 isn't nothing. At the time, it seemed like, $100,000, but I didn't care about the penalty. It didn't bother me. That's just the price of doing business.
Did it feel super risky at the time to you? Like, did it feel like, wow, I'm like at a point where I might be going under if this doesn't actually work?
Mm-mm. I never doubted that it wasn't going to be good because I used all those samples and baked everything. Every time I got a sample, I baked a cake. I couldn't tell you how many cakes I baked until we got it right. So I knew as a baker that it would do well. I never in my mind didn't think that it wasn't going to do well.
But it's interesting that you say that because it's not like flavorings are a totally novel concept, right? I mean, sure, they're different. What you do is different than what you're going to find in a grocery store, but there are other companies that do flavorings, right?
But I think the difference for me was it was mine. And I didn't care if anybody else had it. I just felt like it's Porsha Kimble's flavoring. I have an audience. These people are baking with me. They're baking alongside of me. Why wouldn't they believe me? And I wouldn't sell something that I wouldn't use. That's really what it was. I never thought this isn't going to work. And at the time, I think I only bought 1,000 of each. I only had 3,000 flavors. I only had 1,000 of each bottle. That was all I was planning to produce. I wasn't planning to produce anything else.
It's still quite a lot. 3,000.
Oh, it's a lot. It was 1,000 of each bottle. And when I look back, I'm like, why did I do so many? But it had to make sense for them, right? What money would they make if they didn't? And I think people don't know when you buy liquid, you buy so much liquid. You can't dissect the liquid. It's like eggs. You can't just buy 3 eggs. That's not how it works.
What do you feel like are some mistakes you made in that business that you regret?
I kind of have a double-edged sword on this. It's the glass bottle. I loved the frosted glass bottle. It was like apothecary feel. My degree's in marketing and advertising, so I loved the look. It was elevated. I didn't think about the shipping and the glass just shattering and losing inventory. Didn't think of that. Um, didn't like the label when it came out. I wanted like this marbled look. It didn't translate. So those were some things that I probably regret, but it was so pretty. But glass is expensive. And I didn't do my research on flavor preservation. Like the stuff I know now, I didn't know then. Like brown bottles are going to consume that flavor longer than a clear bottle's going to.
Well, it's interesting because these flavorings, I mean, they could be cottage food products, right? I mean, it's a very different business model for you. But what did you have to do legally to get that business off the ground?
I mean, I didn't have to do anything. I already had an LLC.
Did you get an approval from the health department or anything like that?
No, because my manufacturer is the one they do all of that. So I don't have a warehouse. So I never have poured anything here to create. That is against the law. So I never did that. Once I was with Amanda for a couple of years, I had a few manufacturers reach out saying, if you can give us the formula, we can produce it for you at a cheaper price. And I didn't want to because I had such a great relationship with Amanda. I just was like, no, I don't want to move. But the price point they were offering me was much lower than what I was getting. And they couldn't tell me at the time, but they had just done Shark Tank, but they couldn't tell anybody. So I was in a bad personal and financial spot in my personal life. And they had let me know, like, hey, if you want to do a run of these flavors, you're going to have to put up the money right now. And I didn't have $40,000. I didn't even have $40. They were like, in order to do the run later in the fall, I didn't have it. So I didn't have choice. So I had to move. I had to move on.
I know you said you're an open book, so I don't feel awkward asking you this. But you said that Cakes pulled you out of debt, years and years ago, and then yet you're saying just a few years ago you're still kind of like had no extra money sitting around. Why is that?
I was in a relationship that took a lot of my money. I was helping him with his business. So anything extra I was pouring into his. And when that didn't work out, because I found out he was living a double life, I ended up just abruptly leaving that apartment and moving into this one. So I quit my job February 11th of 2022. I was doing great financially. And then he had a trucking business and he just kept asking me for help. And I thought it was a forever thing. So I just kept helping him. And then I thought, I don't have it. Like for my own business, I was still doing well, but that's what happened. So when I left, in late 2022. In 2023, that's when they came to me and they're like, hey, we have to move. I mean, and I didn't have $40,000. It didn't matter like how well I was doing. It was like everything I had, I was putting it right back in. I was putting it right back in. And I was pricing it so high to cover my cost and fulfillment, there still wasn't really any money left for me. That's the other thing I can say. I don't regret any of that. So when my best friend Nikisha came, she was like, she had worked at a grocery store all her life. She's like, we need to look at your margins. When I realized some of these flavors, I was only making 19 cents a bottle, $1 a bottle. I was like, I can't do this. And they weren't going to lower the price. So them telling me either I had to move on or give them that money was a blessing in disguise.
Because I feel like you had learned about pricing in the process of starting your cake business, right? So,
It is, but I think it was a little bit different when it comes to this because even though it's probably to anybody else like, well, it's the same, you're pricing stuff out. I think it was different because you have runs to make. A run is you have to buy so many bottles of whatever that it is. And so there was fulfillment. I didn't know anything about that. So it's like, oh, I'm having to piece everything together, like the bottles, the labels, the caps, shipping it there, then buying liquid, then buying all the advertisement and all the packaging. Like it was all being just pulled together and I was making it combined, but I never really sat down and was like, okay, let me write it out like I did my cake business because I didn't look at it as a cake business.
yeah, I mean, that's one of the challenges with a product business like this is that you have to sort of be investing up front, investing months out in advance, right? I mean, where are you sourcing the things, not only the liquid itself, but also like your packaging, everything? You're having to get stuff from China or
No, I never did that. The only time I did the China thing was when I did my tablespoons. I literally was getting everything from like you printing. You know what I'm saying? Like I never I did not want to, even though I was betting on myself, I never was like, well, let me buy 5,000 of these boxes. I am not that person. I was like, we're going to do this. We're going to see if it works. So I did like you printing. I did another company that did labels and they did the bottles. I forgot what it was called. So I got all my bottles from them, my caps. And I did that, I think, for like 2 years. And then when I met Nikisha, she was like, do you even know how much you're making per bottle versus what you're getting charged? And I was like, no. And I was charging 18.99 per bottle at the time, 19.99 per bottle because my cost on some of those flavors, like the red velvet and the cream cheese, was more. So even though I was charging 19.99, it was costing me $9.99 liquid wise. That was nothing else. So by the time we broke it down, I was like, I'm not making any money.
do you feel like you're making money now? Because I know your revenue has grown like crazy recently, right?
Yes. Yes, it has. Switching over manufacturer at the time, I had thought about pulling the plug sooner, but I wasn't ready, and I do believe timing is everything. Now I'm not paying close to what I was paying before, which is just amazing. I mean, it's gone up since the tariffs, but it's a better, I think it was the best financial move, one of the best financial moves I've ever made. Plus, there was room for more product development, and there wasn't as much room for that early on.
And then I know you moved into a shipping facility recently,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That's an investment too, though, right? Because you're working out of your house.
I was working out of this room. I moved. Um, that is probably the second. That's one of, not maybe the second, but that's one of the top five best business decisions I ever made. Now I look at it because I have gone through chapter 7 bankruptcy personally based off of the relationship I was in. Now I know that every dollar is allotted to something. And I don't think I thought that way before. I was making such great money when I had a six-figure job. I was making six figures in my cakes business, but I didn't have as much debt at the time either. So once I started getting into the retreats and you owe the hotel, every time people would pay money, I would pay the hotel. Like I never tried to dip into my own money. But as financially things kind of got worse, I didn't have no choice, which didn't leave me with anything. So when I switched over to the manufacturer, I was like, okay, I can do this. I don't think I really started seeing the money until last year. This year will be 5 years. I don't think I really saw the amount of money I could make until last year, or really this year. This year's been a great year so far.
Yeah, it's over six figures already, right?
It was six figures. It's always been six figures. I will say that since I started, I've always hit six figures with PK Elixirs. As of right now, what I made last year for the year, I've already almost made
Yeah, and here we are in May, early May, talking. So that's in the first 4 months of the year, you've made.
close to what I made all year long.
So you're on track to make 3 times what you made last year.
That's the plan with AI.
What's the difference? Did you do anything differently to help spur that growth?
I lowered so over time, once I changed manufacturers, I realized, my profit margin could still be really large if I lowered the price. So they became 14.99, some of them 12.99 that weren't moving as much. So I lowered the price just last September. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make them because I think they were 16.99. I was like, I'm just gonna drop the price. I know that probably sounds crazy to people. Like, why would you drop the price? Because people are already paying. It's helped me make even more money because I think people would say, well, I could probably afford another bottle. The other thing is, I decided to do free shipping after a certain amount because then people feel like, well, I can afford another bottle with the free shipping. Added a couple ambassadors. I think I started really being a little bit more vocal about the flavors on the page. It's really strange how in the beginning I looked at it like it was a side thing until I really had to sit down and I was like, this is one of my businesses making me the most money. So I just need to get rid of the teaching and everything else because it wasn't making me any money, but the flavors were. So putting all my time and energy into it this year, like really just this is it, um, has doubled every month than it was the year before.
And you're not spending as much time packaging, right?
Yeah, I mean the fulfillment price at first seemed a little high when I moved, but it's the time that I got back. It's the gas money that I'm not spending. I'm also not going to the storage facility, 10 minutes for me, taking that stuff, bringing it here, unpackaging it, and then shipping it out. Like it was worth it. I mean, I was packaging 500 to 600 packages a month. And then I started making mistakes. And I was like, I can't keep going like this. Every day I was going to the post office. Every day I was going to UPS because I don't want people's orders to sit here and not do it. That wouldn't I couldn't sleep at night knowing like there's 10 orders in the queue that I didn't get out. Like it would make me anxious.
So obviously there have been challenges starting the elixir business. What do you feel like has kept you going?
I just feel like it's a way of still being in the community, in the baking industry and in the baking community. Because I don't bake for the public anymore. Not really. And I would say not really, I don't. And I think it's just the hunger in me to just keep going. I'm almost done. Now, I'm not gonna keep adding a bunch of flavors now. Like I only want to do the flavors that I know I would use. Like I think that's it. I'm very selective of what I want to put out. And I think it's just important to me as a person and as a brand. Like, this is what I have. So I want to give it all that I have, all that I got, because it's all I got.
I noticed that you have flavors that are limited, going in stock, going out of stock. Like, is that like, I mean, it seems like you could just make as much as you wanted to. Is that intentional?
No, it's not intentional. I would love to have them all the time. But I think what has changed is me showing cookies and cake pops then started to bleed into the treat community, which I really was never in. And so now I have a lot of online treat stores who've been purchasing from me, which was not on my bingo card. So they have really consumed a lot of my product more than I assumed that it would, right? There's like four stores that are, I mean, they are taking it. And it's just not something I was prepared for. I mean, I had them there, but I didn't know they were going to order as frequently as they have. So I have had to increase my run double, even triple on some of the flavors.
So, what do you want the flavor business to become?
I think for a long time when I started, the goal was like, oh, I want to be in Hobby Lobby, oh, I want to be in Michael's. But over time and having conversations with other people who have got products in those stores, which is amazing, think my mind shift changed when I had a conversation with someone in January. They're like, do you really want to go that route and the discounted rate that you have to give? Like, would it really even be profitable? Why not just really be a great online business with flavors? And I was like, you know what? You're right. Why not? So that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm doing.
Well, it's an amazing business, but it's not the only thing you do, right? I know you also educate entrepreneurs, which at one point was something you only did in person. When did you start doing that online?
I just started it last year when I realized that, your phone is very powerful. And because of the phone, people don't really want to spend money to get on a plane and come and see you in person when they can see you in person, just like we're doing right now. So I love teaching people. I love helping other women and men in business, but I thought, why not have some sort of online portal, a community where people can connect from all over, and still get information at a very reasonable price. So that's why I did it.
Well, it's funny though, because you say you started last year, but I know you had online courses in the past and then you shut those down in favor of in person stuff. So, like, I feel like you're almost opposed to the online content in some
I
way.
was. Well, let me tell you why I didn't do the online at first. The reason I didn't want to do online is because when I had the online courses, I saw a lot of people take the class and then they copied me. That's just part of it. And when I look back, it's no big deal. But then I also thought if I take it offline and you have to do it in person, I would think it would make you hungry or give you some drive to come and get the information in person. But when COVID hit, that changed everything. That changed my trajectory of my entire business of in person. I had to go online. And now people work from home. So it's like, why would they come and see me? Why would they spend all this money to come and see me when they could pay a certain amount and come and see me where you have to pay to see me? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So, how has that business been going?
It's different. It's different for me, but I would say I love seeing all the people on the screen. I think having the control of it and not having to travel is nice. We have a theme every month. We have a monthly meeting every month where with a theme of like business challenges and people can chime in. We have other meetings where people come and speak. And I think that's great because everybody can take what they need, every single month. And you can chat amongst with the other members. It's not just all on me. There's ambassadors in the group. So it's been nice.
So, I know you're a pretty opinionated person, right?
No. Yes.
Lay it out for us. What are some of the big mistakes people make? You help home bakers. Like, what are the things you see that frustrate you that people are doing that you feel like somebody who's starting out baking needs to know this?
Okay. The first part of the question, I would say the things that people need to know is, of course, when you start something, you just take everything you can, right? You're excited, you want to do it. You should go through all that. You should make mistakes. You should give free stuff away. You should spot. You should do all of that. I feel like right now people that are in any industry, they want everything to be perfect. They don't want any mistakes. They don't want to mess up at all. And it's like the mess up is the journey. How do you not know to improve or get better if you don't mess up? That's the first thing. The second thing is a refund isn't always going to fix the problem. The third thing I would say is you should take an in person class. I don't care where it is. You should go take something, period, no matter what it is. You also should go to networking events that don't have anything to do with your industry. How else do you get clients? I think people think everyone is online and maybe they are at some capacity, but not everyone has an Instagram page. It is important to have a website. I think those are foundational basics that people want to skip over because they think everyone's online. That's how I feel about it. So I would say those are the things. And I'll tell you what else gets on my nerves. Every time I get on TikTok, these new people, they're like, I don't know if you knew this, but do you know? Like, it's new information. I'm like, girl, we've been doing this. We've been doing this for a long time. Like, it's new. Like, that's funny to me.
Do you ever feel like there's just so much information out there that it's like limiting your impact and like how many people you can reach?
No, I don't think that. But what I do think is that my impact has diminished over time because I'm not in that space anymore. You know what I'm saying? I'm not like an it girl. There's other people that come up that are younger than you that are going to take that light and show things that they didn't know before that they show now because they've grown and I was already at that point. So I think that way.
I'm sure you've come across a lot of the home bakers that they don't really want to put themselves out there, right? They kind of want to hide and be in their home kitchen and making their product, and they want their products to change the world, right? So what do you say to them?
I mean, I don't want to buy from someone that I don't even know what they look like. I can go look at a house, but who's going to sell it? You gonna call me? Are we just gonna do email? Because that's what it is. I can look at a cake, which is a house, but I still want to buy it. So what is the communication? Who am I dealing with? Who am I buying from? You don't have to show your face or have a voice every single time. No, but people want to know who they're buying from. People want to know who they trust. And if I don't know what you look like, the couple things is this: either you're insecure, you don't like how you look, you don't like how you sound. If you're insecure in that, I don't want to do business with the insecure business owner. That's how I look at it. I'm not gonna buy a car from someone who can't tell me all the things about the car.
You're clearly a very extroverted person. Like I'm a very introverted person, right? And I would say like an introverted person doesn't look at themselves that way.
To me, I don't look at like you said, it's different. Some people just don't want to be in the light. It maybe doesn't have anything to do with their looks. Um, but I don't know why you wouldn't want to show yourself when you're the one making it. Why wouldn't you want people to see who's making their stuff?
I think there are some people who feel like if it's based on just them, they're going to limit their business. They want their business to be a brand, because who's the face of Coca-Cola, right? Or, you know what I'm saying?
But I feel like that's an issue with Lorian. They don't have a face. I'm just trusting a name. But if you look over here, I'm in those groups. I have a name. I'm hitting the shows. I'm there with the people. I think that's the difference. Lorraine is always going to be number one. They're always going to sell nationally, internet. That's who they are. But there is something to be said about someone who's been where you are, who's doing what you're doing, who's there with us too.
Just to be clear, I agree with you completely. I mean, I've had to learn how to show up and show my face. Like, here we are, we're talking on this call right now, right? But what helps get someone out of that, right? And I feel like you can say, just show up as only so much, right?
Yes, I agree. I think the way to get yourself out of a box is to do something that you're not familiar with. I didn't like my legs for a long time, so I didn't wear shorts. And one day I said, I want to wear shorts. It's hot. I don't want to keep wearing jeans in 110-degree weather. So I started wearing shorts around the house. Those were my baby steps. Then I said, I'm going to wear shorts when I go to the grocery store. That was so uncomfortable to the point it just felt like it was no big deal, like when I put my pants on. So I would say take that thing you're uncomfortable with and just take one step at a time. If you don't want to show yourself, like as a post, maybe you go in your story because it's going to be gone in 24 hours. Maybe you put that picture on your website. That means you're being seen there. At least the people that go there can see what you look like. Like, those are the things. Maybe you have a family, maybe you don't want to show your kids, but stating I'm a mother, I have a family is letting people know who you are without showing that per se.
Well, you were always known as the cake person, right? The cake lady. I know you now do cake pops or whatever, but you've been doing it for a long time. Like, how has the industry itself changed over time?
I feel like it's just a lot of things as a lost art. The cake shows are gone. Cake competitions dwindled away. Techniques like filigree and a certain level of piping is gone. Everybody just wants to do something easy. I mean, anybody to me can be a cake decorator right now. They can put some buttercream, scrape it off, put a color, scrape it, throw acrylic topper on there, fling some metallic, and they're a cake decorator. When there's so much more to it, or there once was, that isn't really there anymore.
So, I mean, do you feel like it should change? Like, do you feel like this is a bad thing that's happened to the cake industry?
No, I just think people have taken the level of artistry of what it takes and they diminished it like it's nothing.
Because I feel like most people talk about how, wow, we can do so much more, like all the technological advancements. And now like cakes are even more grandiose than they ever were, 15 years ago.
I don't feel that way. I don't think they're as grandiose as they were before COVID. I feel like COVID brought out the glow forge. We used to have to make those letters. Now you can just print them on an acrylic and just put it on there. I feel like the artistry and the creativity of it is there, but the art just changed. I feel like it's kind of in a lazy way. Like people, the trends change, of course. But it's like, okay, we have those heart-shaped cakes and the borders. Half of these people don't even know how to pipe on with all these tips. They just want to use tip 1A. It'll be 1M. And they just use that same tip like a show border and it doesn't even look good. Like there's a lot of people who don't know. Do you know there's a million other tips you could use? You could do this, you could do that, but they're not. They're just using the easiest way. And that's okay because that just might be the person in you. Maybe you just don't know there's other ways. It's an easier way. It was harder before, it's easier now.
You're kind of an interesting mix because you have this like very traditional side of yourself, right? That's kind of resistant to new things, but then you also are like very forward thinking in other things and cutting edge. Um, I can see you nodding. It seems like you agree with that.
I do. I think that was a great, that's why I said that should be like on a dating profile. I think that I'm not afraid to be forward, but I think my tactics are traditional when it comes to selling or looking at things because I grew up in the era of Mary Kay and rainbow vacuum cleaners and encyclopedias. Those are the basic foundations of selling, and those never go out of style. People don't like the cold call, it doesn't go out of style, right? Reaching out. I am forward in the sense of the marketing or things I need to do, but like you said, more traditional in other ways. I agree with you 1,000%. I feel like you read me.
Well, what are some other things you feel like selling wise have not gone out of style?
Being who you are, being authentic, telling the good and the bad. That's one thing that always got that people loved about me is I've always been honest, maybe too honest. I think showing the good and the bad, showing your progression. Like it's okay. I think that's what people are afraid of. Like you always want to be here. It's okay to be down here and go up. That's part of it. I think those are things that people don't want to show, but at the same time, the foundation of that is this is where I am, this is where I am now. That's something you should show, your elevation. Absolutely. That's something that you should show. It's not bragging. It's not, it's just part of it. It's who you are. You should be able to talk about that.
Well, before we close this up, I did want to ask you about how you've sort of shifted away from being in your business to sort of being the CEO of your business. Like that's been a big shift for you recently, it seems. Would you agree with that?
I would, because I didn't look at myself that way.
Do you feel like you should have looked at yourself that way earlier than you did?
Yes. I think saying I think as a baker, we are always like, oh, I just bake cakes. I'm a nurse, but I also bake cakes. It was never I make cakes and then I'm a nurse, right? Because people don't do it that way. I think I just decided to start saying it because I feel like when I say it, the more I say it, the more that's what it is. I am the CEO. You're the CEO of your business. Everybody is the CEO of their business. I don't know why we don't say that word more often because that's what you are. It's not bragging. It's not boasting. You created it. It's your name. It's your money. You're the CEO. You're not just a baker. You're not someone, oh, I'm someone that talks about the cottage law. I'm the CEO of the cottage, blah, 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 blah. This is what I do. There's a difference in the confidence when you say it. And I think the more I told myself to say it, the more and more I felt that way, which helped me in my business. It was like my mindset shifted like, this is my business. I'm the CEO of PK Elixirs, which means what would a CEO do of a business? They would look at their numbers. They would make sure that they had a marketing and advertising budget. They would be on LinkedIn. They would say or post things differently than someone on my personal page. You don't see me talk about that on my personal page. You see me talk about that in Beyond the Frosting and PK Elixirs. So there is a distinction and there is a difference.
Well, it's an amazing business journey. It's taken a lot of different turns. It's pretty crazy where you are today and seeing, your success with your flavorings business, the elixirs. Also, you have this I guess it's kind of a new membership thing that's kind of growing, right? You're building out this community. Where can we expect to see you grow in the next few years? Like what's next for you?
I'm going to come out with maybe two or three more flavors. Um, that's it. I think I'm done for a little bit as far as that goes. I don't really know. I like to keep it open. I think this year was a little different for me than it was last year. I'm trying to keep my schedule open for other things. I would like to be in a larger retailer. Absolutely. I would love for people to maybe see me more as a business person and not just a cake lady. I know it kind of comes across a little different, but some people still see me in that versus, wow, she has this elixir business, this product business that's done X, Y, and Z. I feel like that would be nice in the next few years for people to see that more.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Now, if people would like to learn more about you, where can they find you or how can they reach out?
They can go to pkbakes.com. That'll take you to the flavors and it'll take you to Beyond the Frosting and things like that. But that's really the place. Or Instagram, of course, it's always at It's Porsha Kimble or at underscore Beyond the Frosting or at PK Elixirs. Yes.
Which is a good example of just how many different directions you've gone in your business, right? Always willing to
Yes.
try something new, which is probably something we should learn from. But anyway, thank you so much, Portia, for coming on the show and sharing with us today.
You're so welcome. And I appreciate you having me on today.
And that wraps up another episode of the Forager podcast. For more information about this episode, go to forager.com/podcast/169. And if you enjoyed this podcast episode, I have a favor to ask you. Could you either leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or a rating on Spotify? Or if you're watching this on YouTube, like the video and follow my channel. Any of those things would be super helpful for helping other people find the show as well. And finally, if you are thinking about selling your own homemade food, check out my mini course where I walk you through the steps you need to take to get a cottage food business off the ground. To get the course, go to cottagefoodcourse.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.